I decided to do this show because it seemed with all of the political happenings in the world right now, things that we see on the news every single day, there was a need to tell a story about how there is cultural integration between two opposing different types of people who come together because they love each other. This story is one about snake spirits and humans and how they come together and fall in love and they want to be together. So that's really why I decided to tell the story.
Well, basically, I trained classical Chinese dance first, and then I changed to contemporary. So most of my work and training is combined Chinese dance and contemporary dance. So this is the main input into the project. Because I trained contemporary dance, that the freedom of movement gives me more vocabulary. But plus, because of this particular project of the background story, with the Chinese movement inside, that boosts up the storytelling.
The story is about 2,500 years old and it's from China. And in every age, somebody new comes along and adds their version to the story and changes it up. The most recent version, there was a Jet Li movie made in China. Hollywood have made several different versions of the story. In America, there was a great opera, and Mary Zimmerman also did a version on stage. So in every age, somebody comes along and adds to the story and creates a new one. Our story is somewhat different in that it draws on Western influences. So even though it's an Eastern story, it draws on Western influences like my favorite stories, like The Wizard of Oz or Alice in Wonderland or The Chronicles of Narnia, where we go from the real world into a fantasy world. And that's where the story's played out. So that's one of the differences, as well as the difference in the way that the story is told through multiple art forms.
The main thing was to sort of like take that Chinese sort of culture way of doing things, and redo it, but not being completely literal about it. So it would sort of appeal to a Western audience. I mean, obviously I got brought in to do the poster at the beginning, and that whole design ethos got taken into the production, which is going on now. If you watch it, you'll definitely see the Chinese sort of influence. It's got a very kind of calm, sort of Zen sort of feel to the whole thing. I come from a very sort of painting kind of style. It's a very, it is done digitally, but it comes from an ethos of like making things look like oil paint. I think that's the sort of thing that you'll get from it is, you're taken to this world, it is a picture. There's nothing sort of abstract at all about it. It is literally, it's literally taking you into this fantasy sort of world. So I suppose that's what makes it different is, I don't just move the artwork, I don't just animate it. Everything in there is something I've painted.
When I was thinking about exactly how to do this show, I started to look at the story and decide on which art forms would best convey that story. So it all started really from the story. And one of the very early versions of this tale says that the monk comes in on a wheel of karma, and every other version of the story also has him holding this bowl. So it immediately struck with me, because my background in circus and physical theatre, that I wanted a serial artist to play that role. And similarly with all of the different characters, I wanted to fuse together multiple styles to tell the story, and whatever it took really to tell that story and convey the message in a way that's appropriate. Everything from the digital art to make the landscape, right down to the combination of the styles. And one of the styles is Chinese classical dance, which is the way that the story would have traditionally been told. So I wanted to incorporate that to pay homage to what the story was about and combine it with Western influences in order to bring the story up to modern times and tell it in a new and exciting way for a modern day British audience.
So when Chirag approached me, he gave me a few references of well-known cinematic Chinese films. So one of them was House of Flying Daggers, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and those kind of style of movies. So we knew we wanted that kind of sound, and my main influences are like Hans Zimmer, John Williams, and kind of the Western side of the cinematic world. So we kind of brought those two sides together and built the sound that we created, which was something very similar to House of Flying Daggers.